India is on a very, very strong growth path, but it is the second country following is Philippines.
First, say the Lucas policy 1992, and thankfully because of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's.
And I was so happy that coincidentally we speak about trade, which has been forever, from 11th century. I think we should be very proud that we just had the BrahMos, and Philippines is the first country to get that.
The relations between the Philippines and India seem to be minuscule compared to other Southeast Asian.
I do want to bring out about tourism.
Yes.
And I think when I came to Philippines, not many people in India were familiar with Philippines. Cebu was originally, I think, Sugbu, right? Which was Sugbu or Cebu or Cebu, which is trade. Am I right?
Yes, to trade.
To trade, right? Came to Cebu 16 years ago. I came here. I'm originally from Mumbai, India. Namaskar and Mabuhay to all our dear Filipino friends and our Indian friends across the globe. You might be wondering what is this all about. So my name is Aparna Veera and I work as, will we be able to connect later?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start again. My name is Aparna Veera and I'm employed I came to Cebu 16 years ago and it's been a while now. And from Cebu, I moved to Manila. I work for an organization called Taskus BPO. I work as Vice President, Global Strategy. So when I came here and when I had to work with people around, this was a very new culture for me, considering from where I came from. And I wanted to be very successful. So I thought to be successful, the first thing I need to do is to know the culture and know people here, because in the BPO industry, we work with a lot of people. It's not in hundreds, it's in thousands, the number of people. And that motivated me to go beyond office and start to look and understand what is Philippines about, who are the people here, what's their history. And that's where it was very intriguing when I came across some interesting findings, and that made me think, was there any connection between India and Philippines in the past? And then as I explored, I thought there were many. And that's where this journey began. And in this journey, I came across various people whom we shared, we found out, we shared our experiences. And then eventually I thought it's now time when we speak about I think I call it eternal connection, very, very historical. And I met a very, very knowledgeable and a gentleman will introduce about him. And we've invited him in our studio today to share his insights about our historical connection. So let me not hold you all for too long. But before that, let me introduce you to a very dear friend of mine and a co-host for today. She's Kim, and I'll let her introduce herself. So Kim, welcome to this exciting show today.
Thank you, Aparna, for having me. So, hi everybody, I'm Kim Tiwari. So, I'm Filipina. I'm actually married to an Indian national. So, we have our business here in Philippines. So, we have pharmaceutical business here, and yeah. So, this is a very interesting topic because it's about Indian and Philippines linkage. Yeah. So, here we also have Sir Jovi Santa Rita. Yes, he's actually a professor of Asian Center in University of the Philippines, Diliman, and also the president of ASEAN Studies Association of the Philippines. Yes.
Welcome, Professor.
Welcome.
We're very privileged to have you here, and we could not wait for this today. So very, very excited. So over to you for your introductions.
Thank you very much, Aparna. and of course came for this invitation. This is a rare opportunity for me also to reach out to a wider audience about telling about it. So I'm Joffy Santarita, professor of the Asian Center with India as my country of specialization. So I graduated from the National University of Singapore with my PhD in South Asian Studies.
And I believe you've written some books as well, Professor?
Modestly aside, yes, I have several books and articles about, especially on India-Philippine connections.
Great, and that complements our topic for today.
I hope so.
Yes, so let's begin,
Sure.
and I'll start with something what I explored, and you are
Okay.
the expert. So when I came to Cebu, it was Visayas, right? And I was trying to understand, and then I came across people. So that's when I realized I found words like achara, which was like a pickle, and I said this sounds like achar, which is in India.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I also got very fond of the massage, which we consider as a physiotherapy, and that's where I found it very interesting. I connected it with wellness because they would tell me, "Oh, you've got lamig here,"
Yes.
and so I tried to understand what is lamig, and they said it's cold, and then they would do kind of a
Massage.
specific massage, and then it would get okay. So I related it with some of our traditional Ayurvedic practices, where we call it the vital force, the pran vayu, which is stuck, and you need to help it channelize. So I said there has to be a lot of connection. Then I would hear things about, when I went to Sigihor Island,
Yes.
they spoke a lot about the third eye,
Mm.
and they said my third eye is open. I can see a little beyond. I said this sounds like our Lord Shiva's third eye. So they're very interesting one. So I'll let you share a little more about that. And you come from Visayas,
Yes.
so it'll be interesting to hear from you.
I think the connection of the Philippines and India started centuries ago, and we can say that it's not just only the political but also the cultural links. And you're correct by saying that there are so many commonalities or similarities between the practices of Indians and the Filipinos alike, and that would include definitely the health traditions, and, even the idea of hilot or massage, for
That's
instance,
correct.
even the mentality associated to it. There are so many things. Perhaps that would explain why the historical connections and interactions or interfaces of early Indians and the Filipinos come into fruition. Because we all know that prior to the 12th century, if I'm allowed definitely to discuss it,
Sure.
that it was believed that the Indians came here, even passing through Southeast Asia, going to Indonesia and what we call now Indonesia and Malaysia, for that matter, going to the southern part of the Philippines, even before the coming of Islam in 12th century. So there are so many manifestations of that, artifacts that definitely prove our what we call as umbilical connections with India. But of course, I have to say that the terminology is quite, shall say, relatively new, considering it was introduced, as far as I know, as far as I can remember, it was introduced by the late President Abdul Kalam when he mentioned about umbilical connection. But that particular idea of umbilical connections will also mean the presence of Indians here, referring to the diaspora, Indian diaspora in the Philippines. So that means that before the coming of the Spaniards and before the coming of Muslims here, Islamization, definitely, because we have several terminologies, even the polity or what we call as kingdoms.
Yeah, like for example, Raja Humabon.
Correct.
When Magellan came, it was Raja Humabon, and he addressed it as Raha because Spanish called J as age.
Correct.
And if I understand correct, Raja Humabon was the fourth generation. Allow me to go back. So I know there are no very strong evidences because of no written history or something. So I would certainly like to give a disclaimer that this is not without any authority, but I do want to bring out that what I understood was, and I'm sure many of us do, that there was this kingdom of Sri Vijaya who ruled out of Indonesia or Sumatra.
Yes.
He had a very large empire. It was Buddhist basically, and the Chol dynasty from South India. Supposedly in the beginning they were collaborative, but eventually the Chol dynasty defeated, right? Defeated, and they wanted to send someone to kind of establish, and one of their nephew in the 12th century or late 1100s, even earlier probably, he came here, and he was, I think, his mother was half Malay or something like that. And then when he came here, he decided, he kind of revolted and he preferred to make his own empire, kingdom. And in fact, they were all called Shri, the names of his brothers were also with, the first word would be Shri, what we use very common. And then it was his fourth generation, which was Raja Humabon. That's my understanding. But I'll let you throw some light onto that.
Yes. We all know that the Chola also went here, and you're correct by saying that at the very beginning, they wanted to have a peaceful engagement with Srivijaya. The Srivijaya is a historical polity. That means there's no question about that.
Absolutely.
It's part of the mandala. It expanded history because it's a talasa of gravity.
And there you go. Mandala word also comes from Sanskrit.
Correct. It's a concentric circle. Circle of circles. And definitely they can have more tributes in the expansion happen because of this relationship. But I guess the Chola dynasty wanted also to expand. And in that process, they were able, there was competition. And the Srivijaya also reacted to that. So the Chola dynasty, I think, if I remember it right, was the Rajendra Chola.
That's absolutely correct.
And he sent actually some of his expeditionary forces. And one of that is Sri Lumai.
Sri Lumai, that's the name I was saying.
Yes, Sri Lumai happened to go to Cebu. And from there, I think you're correct, it's four descendants already.
Yeah.
Sri Raja Humabon was the fourth descendant.
So he's the descendant
of Sri Lumai.
And even Raja Humabon also had some Shri name, something I'm forgetting. Yeah, it was then brought into.
And I think this is actually a very good evidence. Because of the fact that we have to know that we don't have concrete. There was no temple. There's no temple. No concrete monumental projects, except for some artifacts. Because we all know that early Filipinos, more or less, we are oral tradition people.
Yes,
So
everything passed on orally.
From one mouth to the other, and therefore that's we are not really fond of writing. And definitely, perhaps that's the reason why we don't have much of these artifacts or documents to prove it. And if there were, these might be destroyed by the Spaniards during the colonization. So it's possible. In the absence of documents right now, or any artifacts, definitely we can just simply assume or presume. So going back to that, even the words, the terminologies, and the languages will already prove that we have a very long tradition of connections, that umbilical and special connections between, say, Indians and pre-colonial Filipinos. Already, there was that.
Yeah, like the Ranis. I remember when we were young. So in India, we call it Maharani, right?
Yes.
So and Maharaja. So it's like our Raha also, and the Ranis here, which refers to as queen.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and you mentioned those Ranis, they were, they traveled in a certain way. Interesting.
Yeah, actually, when I was younger, I used to be a dancer. So we used to have folk dances. So like Sikil and others. So they used to like carry in like a bamboo or So it's kind of like the same like how
Like
in Indians they
palki.
call it a palki, where the queen like sit down and they used to like carry it.
It's good that you mentioned about Sikh, because Sikh we thought is associated to Islam.
Yeah.
But if you try to look at on the etymology, I have some publications on that. I'm not saying we're totally eradicating Islam influences. In fact, we should be thankful to Islam for carrying it throughout.
Correct.
But if you try to look at it, Singkil is associated to the Rangi, and the Rangi related to Ramayana.
Ramayana.
The Maharaja Lawana here is a version of the Ramayana in the Philippines.
And the Marana, okay.
Right. And Singkil is the dancing description of what happened in the Maharaja Lawana in the Rangi.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Can you share a little more about it? You said Ramayana, right?
Yes,
So that's-
although there's a different,
Yeah.
according to Dr. Juan Francisco, professor also from the Asian Center, he was the one who discovered it. And, although different names and different, little bit of that, but he noted that it's more similar to the story of the Ramayana, the original Ramayana, similar to Brahmakian, for instance, Southeast Asia. So in the case, it's the Raha also, and the Princess Gandhian. Princess Gandhian is equivalent to that of Sita.
Yeah.
Who was also trying to escape from
Ravan.
Ravana. But there's another name for that. I forgot the name of the equivalent of that in Maharaja one. But the one, the dancing, particularly using bamboos, these are actually replicating Sita's escape from the forest. So the swaying of the bamboos are replicating that.
That's very interesting, right?
Yes.
And is it still performed?
Oh yes, in southern Philippines.
You could watch it in YouTube. They
Yeah,
have it
really?
also there, yeah.
Yes. So perhaps it's good to know where we're not, as again, it's a disclaimer, perhaps just a clarification that we're not antagonizing any religious philosophical tradition.
Yes.
We are even
Just trying to connect.
connect it.
Like,
and we're thankful to Islam for doing it. So
Because they have carried the tradition,
correct,
right?
correct.
Which is, I think, being very cohesive,
Yes,
accepting something or something which was existent.
correct.
You've continued it. That's
So that means there's a syncretic element now in the process of Islamization of the Philippines.
that's again, I think that's another thing which I thought is very similar to where I belong to. So, India, we're a very inclusive community. Like everybody lives with a lot of parity, and everybody's allowed to practice irrespective of their religion,
Yes.
their whatever they believe in. And I think one of the things when I would like to share that I've been living here for 16 years. I live alone as a woman, and I think I have lived not just safely, but I think I have been able to interact with any community. I've been able to practice what where I come from, without anybody looking down on me or questioning me. So that brings in this similarity of inclusiveness, this feeling of inclusiveness. And I think we're very community oriented, right? Just like back home, we've got large families.
It's not just only community, but also family.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's another thing what I've seen very similar to what, I was amazed when I used to think that in India we have high ownership, we have legacy of people taking care of their families. But I was amazed when I would speak to my friends, colleagues, subordinates. There were people who were supporting like auntie's aunt, some uncle in the province, which I thought is very commendable, and it just speaks volumes about the large-heartedness. So from a growth perspective, I don't know how many of you are aware, but IMF says that from an outlook perspective, India is definitely ahead of the race with expected growth above 6.5%. But it is the second country following is Philippines, expecting at 6% growth. So this just speaks. I just thought it was very uncanny that we're back again together. India, Philippines, we see our trade has increased. we've seen how our diaspora has increased, and you welcomed it.
Mm.
And I felt just like I was proud and excited about looking at India's growth number. I was equally proud about seeing, wow, it's Philippines. You know,
Mm.
once upon a time we would say these were all, third world countries, Southeast Asian, but look at where they are in the race.
Mm.
And maybe it is this probably the basic nature and culture of the society
Mm.
which is supporting, this revival, this growth.
Yes.
And if you see globally, I think it's very, you go to Dubai, you go to any part of the world, you'll find Indians and Filipinos for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think hardworking people, peaceful people, you hardly will ever hear, any kind of not so.
Good in English.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
In
So
Indians as
yeah,
well.
I think we are reviving our ancient connect,
Mhm.
cultural connect, and maybe this together is only going to make it a better, Southeast Asia or a better
Mhm.
world to live in. But
Mm.
thoughts from you?
I think we're supposed to be brothers or sisters for that. We started from similarities even from the very beginning. The Philippines started in 1945 as a nation state. India in 1947 as a nation state, and from there we have some similarities, also same problems with population, even in terms of health, in terms of even of trade and commerce. But I guess despite this development, we are a little bit farther from India. India is now considered to be one of the superpowers economically. Hopefully, as you know, the superpower in many ways. So the Philippines would like to partner with India in so many ways also. It could be in terms of strategic partnership. Uh, Unfortunately, I think from the 1990s or even before that, we had just a simple, cordial but distant relations with India. It was only after, say, the Lucas policy in 1992, and thankfully because of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's reactivation of India's APIS policy in 2014, that we're able to realize some improvement in our relations, particularly economic relations. But again, bluntly speaking, I can say that the relations between the Philippines and India seem to be minuscule compared to other Southeast Asian countries like Singapore, Malaysia. Even our tourism is quite small.
We'll come to that tourism.
Yes, yes. But again, in terms of the economy, there is still, a large room for improvement. But I'm glad that in 2010 we're able to reach out to the 10 billion of 1 billion rather of interaction import export in
Yes.
2010.
Yes.
And after that, we managed to improve export and import. But there's still, as I said, a lot of improvement thanks to pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always talk about the pharmaceutical. You have the BPO also. Prior to that, it's just simply rice and textiles and other manufactured products, garments. But we elevated that interaction with
And probably you just prompt me to say that we're definitely reviving. And as you said, our recent governments, I think it's commendable for both the governments who are doing a lot.
Yes.
And I think we should be very proud that we just had a deal which was signed in 22 and it is about to be completed, is the BrahMos, right? I mean, I was so happy that coincidentally we speak about trade which has been forever, from 11th century. And the Philippines is the first country to get that from
That's correct, and we're very thankful for that. That means there's a serious consideration part of our government, the administration of former President Duterte, and of course the Prime Minister Modi's administration, to elevate the relationship on a higher platform, say for instance strategic, because it's a rare opportunity for the Philippines to modernize its ammunition, not targeting anybody, but definitely to protect also our territory. And we are thankful of the technology that shared to us by India, of course, is with the Russian technology as well. But the BrahMos missile isn't making or helping the Philippines and the Philippine armed forces to improve it's a long dream already of the Philippine armed forces to
So there
improve
you.
it. And I think we are thankful.
And you know what? When you speak about you said we are like brothers,
Yes.
it brings me to this interesting anecdote. So when I came to Cebu, and it's very common to hear bay, right? Bay.
Oh, yes.
And that bay actually comes from when I read, it comes from the word bhai, which is brother in India, which then became bai, bai, and bay, and then bay.
Yeah, that's correct. That's also a realization that after hearing you, but before that, perhaps because there are so many people asking, Mumbai,
Yeah, it comes, I think, from Mumbai.
Mumbai. But I think if we go to the etymology of that, Bai is brother,
Yes,
Yeah.
it's bhai.
and Boom is land.
Correct. So
So
it's
Bhumi.
it's-
Yeah, so it's the brother of the land. So that means, it has to change because of the stereotyping that all the Indians here are
Called Mumbai.
Mumbai.
Mumbai 5-6.
5-6.
Mumbai five.
I think there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
because there are also our brothers in Mumbai are also doing their best to survive. But we have to correct that notion.
Some of these
Yes.
notions, like a lot of the words, and I think you still have over 350 words,
Oh, yes.
Sanskrit words.
That's correct.
And coming to that, so the original language here, which is Alibata,
Mhm.
or you call it
Babayan.
Babayan, right?
Mhm.
So that is totally based on Sanskrit.
Well, I think it doesn't mean that we have
And let
some.
me correct myself.
Yes. Okay.
When I say Sanskrit, it actually comes from the South India.
Uh-huh.
So the South Indian languages, we have
The Tamils.
Tamils are very different. So it comes from that. Most of the Sanskrit, like for example, you still have the word sakshi as your
Mhm.
witness.
Mhm.
And in Sanskrit, sakshi is witness.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, but I think let me just clarify
Yeah.
this, that despite all these references, it doesn't deny the fact that we have also our indigenous knowledge.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we definitely try to integrate some of those. It's a process of acculturation. And you're correct that there are about 350 words, present,
words
married
there, right?
words, right, loan words from India, from Sanskrit. So we can always
We should explore more.
explore.
And I think some of the words probably, they were more, but they have kind of.
For sure, it's not just only the Manila or the Filipino, but we can talk about Tausug, they're present in Kapampangan, even in the Visayas. For instance, we talk about Bana. The Bana is, arrow, I think, in your
Barn. Then we
Barn.
call it barn.
Barn.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Here in the Philippines, we call it Pana. Pana. Pana.
Mm.
But
So the root word is barn.
yes, but if you're trying to trace it back, in the Visayas, we have Bana, which is actually husband. So,
Okay, so
Yeah, it might
I'm
be-
sure there have been variations.
Yes,
But
yes.
you're right. The arrow, the word barn,
Yeah.
comes from the.
Okay, so I think we also, aside from that Bana, it's very important also to take note of, like, say, other words like pitaka. In India, that is basket, right?
Yeah.
Here in the Philippines, it's
Wallet.
a wallet.
Like a purse.
So it's.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
your kama, for instance. Your kama there in India is love. But if it is now in the Philippines, it becomes bed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all those things, it's quite
So the,
interesting.
the essence is somewhere connected. It could
Yeah.
be slightly variated,
Correct.
variations.
And there's so many saksi, suchi,
Yeah,
rupa,
Yeah.
even guru for the
Guru, I heard guru, mukha, right? For the face.
face.
Yeah, there are a lot of words which I was reading. And even in some of your practices, like I have a very good friend and a colleague. In fact, I'll get him to share a few things. He comes from one of the indigenous tribes from the Davao,
Okay.
and he was mentioning about that they would have a lot of, like for example, and I'll have him say this and share as well with his, his ancestors. They could do farming, and they would relate it to astronomical readings of constellations, which is very similar to what we do a lot of these kind of things back home traditionally.
So the calendrical and agricultural terminologies also.
Yes, yes, he was sharing.
Greetings. You might be surprised out of the studio, but in this series where we are trying to talk about our ancestral connection between Philippines and India, we just couldn't do it without this person whom I met and who is equally passionate about this subject. So I had to catch hold of him. He couldn't make it to the studio, so I got him here. And Jonna, thanks for working out this for us. So I have here Carl, who is a very dear colleague and friend from my office. But the common thing between us is he's as passionate about our history as I am. We love to unfold things together. He comes from Digos, a place in Davao, and he's going to share some really interesting stuff, which I thought was as intriguing as I keep saying what I know about our ancestral connection. So welcome, Carl.
Thank you for having me.
Delighted and pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yep, and so we've already recorded this. We're going to fit this in as part of the program because we couldn't do it without what we shared.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Allow you to introduce yourself.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for making me a part of this important work that you do. I'm Carl. I grew up in a village called Binaton in Digos City in Davao. It's in the foothills of Mount Apo. And my ancestors were part of the original 11 tribes that inhabited Digos City, or the Davao region. Tribe we were called Tagabawa, Bagobo Tagabawa. And so I really am very much interested in understanding our ancestry and our history as people, because growing up, there's a lot in our culture that just negate with our colonial history. So I'll talk about, those things as we go. But today I'm excited to kind of just dish out a few of these things that I witnessed firsthand growing up that seem to be inspired from ancient knowledge that predates Spaniard colonization.
And that's where, when we were talking, this really interested me. So let's go step by step. So I remember you mentioning few things together. One of them was you had a system of medical science.
Yes.
Healthcare. And if I recall correct, you said you checked some pulses, some nerves, and you knew what to do. Why don't you share something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. So, growing up, my ancestors, whenever a kid or somebody gets sick in the village, they would call this person, and we call them Mabalian, and the Mabalian would always diagnose certain types of issue by just feeling the pulse in the hand. So they do
so would that pulse
three fingers here.
Three fingers
here, right?
Okay.
And then, they would then know if you have cough or anything. It goes from mild as fever to grave as potentially more elaborate illnesses, right? Like there's not an equivalent term for it in, your modern Western medical
I can't
terms.
wait to share with you, and I can't wait to share with our people. This is just amazing. So what Carl says, that they had a process where they would use three fingers on their wrist pulse, check the nature of the problem, the disease,
Correct.
ailment. But when you look at Ayurveda, which is our most ancient Indian medical science, that's where you said, what is the person you said?
Called
Mabalyan, and we've got Ved, you are the doctors who actually touch your three pulses on your wrist, and they decide what defect you have. So,
Correct.
Ayurveda has Vata, Pitta, Kapha. That is, you have thermal energy problem, you have potential energy or a kinetic energy. And
Yeah.
that's actually done through that. And then a lot of herbs and a lot of massage therapies,
Correct.
etc., are used to
Yes.
cure. So this is like, isn't it amazing, right?
It is, right? We don't call it energy then, but we do know that, there could be some things that get stuck. And the immediate resolution to that is applied is through deep tissue massage, right? So a lot of what we do the people relied so much on oil, coconut oil, but these coconut oils were infused with different types of twigs that you can usually find in balete trees or
Balete tree. So here we go. Another point of commonality. So balete tree is what we call the banyan tree
the
in
banyan
India.
tree in India.
And banyan tree is considered to be like the tree of the gods.
Yes.
People worship. So how about here?
So we have beings. We don't really call them gods, but before in Christian indoctrination of people, I knew, and my ancestors believed in many deities. So they call them Tigbanwa in our
And
language.
did they all reside in the balete tree?
All of them reside in the balete tree, and it's
Exactly.
always balete trees are revered to be sacred, and so we don't just cut them.
You don't allow to
We
cut
don't.
them,
Yeah,
right?
they're not allowed, right? And so all of the goodness and all of the bad things are believed to be coming from the Tigbanuas that live in the
That's so
tree.
interesting. So this is just for all our friends. In India, banyan tree is also equally important. We don't cut it. In fact, we plant it. It grows old, and it's got very large roots and
Yeah.
trees. And the barks and the roots and the leaves of the tree are used in herbal medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. But if we had to look at it in a modern perspective, this tree releases maximum oxygen. It's the tree which releases the highest oxygen as
Because of its
compared to any
size?
other tree. Yeah, by its
Yeah,
size.
that
So-
makes sense.
Yeah, and so it's absolutely needed, essential.
Yeah.
And probably these were ways to, preserve, these kind of important things. It's
Yeah.
very similar. What I'm talking about
Yeah,
is
the
similarity.
similarities
And
are
coming from
right.
that, also mentioned, now coming, so we came to health, we came to this tree. Then you mentioned that you had a lot of deities which you worshipped. And then you also looked at stars and you did your farming.
Yeah.
How about few things of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, coming from the balete tree, there were different types of Tigbanua that oversees different types of things. You have a Tigbanua that is in charge of the planting season, Tigbanua that is in charge of drought and harvest season, and all of these things, right? And health and all of that. Now, I have to note though that we weren't very much big in our culture of naming these Tigbanuas. We just call them
You just call them Tigbanuas
in general.
And in our world, we had names like Indra is the lord
I
for
see.
rains, farming, god. Then we have Vritti, who's a god for I think it's for famine, but I'll have to confirm. So we have similar perspective.
Yeah.
Where we look at certain deities who take care of a certain part of the nature.
Yeah. And you also have an equally powerful Tigbanua who is more on the opposite side, like the bad things responsible for bad things, like illnesses and all
you
that.
have the demons and
you
have the
have
gods,
to appease them, right? And so sometimes the appeasement can be at a cost of a sacrifice, like an animal sacrifice or anything of that nature. In the old times, and my elders and their ancestors weren't really exposed so much on Western education or the technology on farming. And so when I grew up in the village, things were just slowly being introduced as far as modern farming is concerned, fertilizer and all that. However, they still have retained some knowledge on farming that is giving so much evidence to knowledge and wisdom that did not come from Western civilization or colonization. For example, by looking at the position of the stars and the phases of the moon, they know if it's good to plant. Which,
Wow.
yeah.
So they would actually look at the stars.
Yep.
They would look at some certain whatever.
Yeah,
Certain
patterns of the
position
stars,
these
position of
stars,
the stars,
and they
like
would decide.
where a particular star would rise and would set in the sky. And there's big emphasis on the phases of moon, and when they plant crops. For example, they always believe that in full moon you plant a lot of root crops, right?
Yeah.
Like root crops, because they believe that the full moon will also influence the fullness and richness of these crops. But these are stories that are been passed on from
So they
generation to
weren't
generation. They weren't
documented.
documented.
And probably today we'll have to give a disclaimer. These are what has
Yes,
passed on.
correct.
There's no concrete or like a evidence-based study done on it, but I still think it's important that few things
It is, right?
have stayed. And for example, studying of these stars and looking at moon and the plants crop, this again brings in a lot of similarity.
Right.
Or the way we look at things back in India, and that it reminds me, you mentioned of that particular word which you said they were landowners, farmers.
Yeah.
Share about
The
that.
villages are ruled by Datu. So
Datu.
the Datu is basically an heir to the land, an heir to the entire village, and he is responsible for the people that live in his village. And so he is the one that owns everything, and technically he is the one that provides for everything, for
Provides
people's food,
for. So
shelter.
that brings in Datu. I'm not sure if it comes from that word. We'll have to probably study about it. But Datu comes from the word, in India we say Data. Data means the giver. So it was very common, Annadata. Annadata means somebody who takes care of you, who provides food. So somebody in the village or in the province, who's responsible for making sure that everybody gets to their the day-to-day living is taken care of, and they are well nourished. And this is again brings in this terms, Datu and
That's very interesting.
Annadata. So I'm sure if we had to look back,
Yeah.
years ago, centuries ago, again repeat, because this was my objective, that trade, interactions are not really just modern day stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
I think it existed, but probably because we didn't have flights and we had mail,
Right.
so things took longer. But certainly we seem to share a lot of common history, a lot of ways of living, which seems to be based on common practices.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think makes sense, right? Because, if I think about it, the Christian indoctrination did not teach any of these things, like the multiple, deities that they believe to be. In fact, it's frowned upon, right? Because we have a singular, very linear faith. But at the same time, where I'm really also coming from and what I'm super curious about is the fact that if our history as people, how it's being taught in universities and our history books now, claim to just have really started after we have been colonized, then where did all of these
So
knowledge
there's
come
so much
from, right?
to go back. And I think that to go back is not to become ancient, but to go back to always know what our roots,
Yes.
how are we similar, and how do we continue to do this? Because this is was my intention of this whole episode, what we made, and I think many more will be coming for us to share. Because I think these are we know each other. Maybe we are limited to know each other by certain terms, certain ways. But the moment we get to know this kind of heritage where we
And
connect,
and understand the
it's so
parallelism,
easy
right?
to work with
Right.
people. It's so easy to understand.
Yeah.
And probably that's the reason why I came here.
Yeah, same.
And so, Carl, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure having
Thank
you
you,
here.
Aparna.
And I know we'll continue this journey in many different other ways in different episodes. So
Absolutely.
So we'll embed this back to our video, what we've been doing with the professor, and put it all together to see how it brings in so much of interesting updates for us as two countries, binding us together, not just now, but because of our ancient heritage. Thank you, Carl.
Awesome.
And then coming to that, I do want to bring out about tourism.
Yes.
And I think when I came to Philippines, not many people in India were familiar with Philippines. In fact, I myself was quite apprehensive, though my uncle had lived here in Manila for a while. But when I came to Cebu, which is all surrounded by some of the most beautiful islands you could have had. They are Virgin Islands. And so I would go, I mean, I've been visiting almost every part of your country. I would say it's my country as well now. And I think what we could promote more, and I keep doing that, and we could do so much more, is about tourism to Philippines.
Right.
We go to so many other countries. Look at your beaches. I mean,
Boracay, Palawan.
and I certainly want to share with my audience, both Indian and Filipinos, that someone like me, I don't know swimming, but it's this country where I was so well taken care of that I could do some of the activities like helmet diving, snorkeling without knowing swimming, because it's such a place of beautiful people, who are always ready to help, ready to support. I would feel so safe, and I think I've done some of the best adventures I could. So I think that we should open doors, for tourism. I'm sure there is work going on, but we must advertise to say that we could do that, and vice versa. I'm sure we'll have some upcoming series on about tourism, which we'll do separately. But your thoughts.
Perhaps I think I'll talk about what we can do, because since 1990s, in 1996, I thought that we will have vibrant interactions coming of Indians in the Philippines. In fact, there was an instance that Indian tourists ranked first among the
Oh really?
yes
I didn't know
tourists
that.
in Southeast Asia and Asia. But the problem is, and this is actually the thing that we need to address. I mean, the government and other stakeholders should address. One, there must be a direct flight from India to the Philippines.
Yes.
There was an attempt before by the Philippine Airlines to do that, but I guess it did not did not work well. Aside from connectivity, there must be creative economy. That means we have to provide those halal and, of course, vegetarian food. I mean, that to cater for the Indians. And third, I think there must be an aggressive, promotion and advertisement. Marketing that's correct. Correct. I agree. Both, because in a way there must be a two-way, a dual process. It's not just only encouraging Indians to come here in the Philippines when we like that from a Philippine point of view, but also Filipinos to get to know more of their brothers in India.
Absolutely.
So I think there are so many things that we can do, especially right now. Maybe in the process of tourism, we're able to change also the stereotype of thinking of the Philippines about Indians. That Indians here are also professionals.
Yes.
That brings me. So Kim has been to India, and I must credit to her. For someone who didn't know her country, I think it has been adventurous for her.
Because I love culture, of course. Because my husband is Indian, so I really love
But gradually, when I heard from her how she got used to it and she began to understand, so maybe you want to share any anecdote of that?
So mostly like of my friends, so they wouldn't know about India, so they would go, "Oh, the Mumbai, I've seen in social media," and I kept on telling, not all the Mumbais are like that. What they're showing is actually like just a part of India, the slum area of it. Like us, we have also like the Quiapo or the Divisoria side. That's what they're showing. But you have to see there's also like the nice place also in India like that. So
I think related to that, I'm not so sure if it is going to be a promotion, but perhaps that's the reason why it's conducting a research on Indian professionals, IT professionals, doing a survey on that. Because that's one way also showing to the Philippines, telling the Philippines that there's more than being 5-6.
yes.
That Indians are also professionals, Indians are,
Businessmen.
businessmen.
If you would see also, most of the surgeons and doctors are
Correct.
like
And
the
of
best
course,
one.
Indians also studying here in the medical schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think me staying here for so long, and I, being in a professional industry, interacting with so many professional people, global, I would say, leadership, employees, whatever. But I do want to, definitely credit it and call it out that you have the Filipino, intellectual property is very high. It's just that I think that culturally you're quieter. or maybe you don't, show it so much. But as I stayed here and as I learned, I love working, and I'm sure that's why I'm here. It's been 16 years. I think we see amazing results and amazing work done out of this place, which speaks volumes about the capabilities. Speaks volumes about the commitment.
Right.
We thought that in India we're very committed. We would not go until we finish the work. We have similar, competitive spirit here.
Hard workers.
Very hardworking people. I mean, we have people across the industry travel from hours long. Where you change into 4 jeepneys.
Yeah.
And then you come and you work fresh, and then you go back looking as happy as ever, which I think is something I would say from an exchange perspective, cultural. One thing most of us Indians have learned from the Filipino friends here is to remain happy.
Yeah.
Your happiness index is unbelievable. People in your worst stress times, natural calamities, your typhoons. I can't believe the number of typhoons you have. How the resilience of the people, and we still have people coming next day to work. And we would call people to work. I think that's very, very commendable, and we learn from that. I have evolved a lot working with my Filipino friends. How to be, happy at all times. Yeah. So I was talking about the resilience of, the community here, which I have learned a lot. I've learned to be patient and not, patience is a virtue, and we don't have to be unnecessarily impatient. That's something I learned, which when I go back home, I always share. And I think as an individual, I'm forever going to be grateful to Philippines, which I think next to India is my next motherland. And all the values what I learned, is has only amplified, the goodness of what I brought from my own cultural heritage.
Yeah, and I guess there's a mutual appreciation of what you're feeling about what you think about the Philippines. Similarly, for me, studying about India, I have also great appreciation to the Indian
And you visited India, I think.
several times already.
Really? Which are some of the places?
Of course, or Kolkata, New Delhi, even as far as Agra and Chandigarh.
Chhattisgarh as well.
Yes. And of course, Kharagpur. No, it's not Kharagpur, but Kokrajhar.
Kokrajhar.
Assam.
That's northeast.
Yes.
If you're in northeast, you're in the Philippines.
Yes, because there are
Right.
similarities. That's the gateway, supposedly.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I also personally respect, and admire the Indian mentality, especially from based on your faith, that you're able to gain and definitely be more persistent and patient because of the devotion to God.
And the culture,
Yes.
how Indians preserve culture so much.
Yes.
So it's just amazing, they would have grand festivals. Like it's really like so fun to witness Diwali's there. Holi is coming. That's why we're traveling this month also.
But even talking about resiliency, it's not only the Philippines, but the resiliency that you'll see that in the karmic circle, the transmigration of the soul, the samsara, is already telling you to become resilient.
And that's correct. That's
Yeah,
very
so I think that idea of, that admiration is mutual because we have that similarity maybe of our experience and maybe of our religious beliefs and practices that make us more closer to each other and definitely engaging with each other since time immemorial, maybe in a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. This is phenomenal, and I think of course, I personally, because I belong to an industry which grew here in the Philippines, and by the virtue of which I came here, the IT and the media division, and I think it's done wonders because that brought in a lot of migration, and it's interesting over the time. It's not just Indians coming here, but we've got a lot of Filipino friends and neighborhood who visit now India, just like the other parts of the globe. They live there. They go and help us set up, new businesses and accounts, and they're highly looked upon because Philippines is a very established place for some of these industries. I think we're very excited that the coming years are going to be our years, right?
Correct.
Like I repeat again, the growth rate excites me, and I think Philippines just closed at about 5.6 fourth quarter, the year-end GDP, which I think is better than all your neighboring countries.
Correct.
And of course, we're going strong in India as well. So this, I believe that we are together going, with our ancient connection. I've titled the podcast as eternal linkage.
Yes.
Which I think was always there. With the evolution, it will continue, and we are going to help each other only get better, stronger together. So and we have avenues for, as you said, apart from the normal business, tourism, and a whole bunch of other platforms to bring us closer together and learn from each other. Right? Since we share the same cultural values, I think, in many ways.
Yes.
So I hope our viewers found it interesting and we were able to share insights. I mean, there's so much, but we have little time. But we will continue to come up with, related and interesting topics for you in the coming future. And I'm sure you will look forward to that. But thank you for watching us. And please share it with your friends, families across the globe. And send us your feedback so that we can also make it better next time. So once again, thank you, Professor, for taking out your precious time and joining us. And Kim, thank you very much for sharing this with me. And thank you, and once again, salamat to all our Filipino friends and our Indian friends across the globe. Namaskar and salamat.